another anniversary of Nakba Day, or the Day of Catastrophe in Palestine. Every year on May 15th, thousands of Palestinians take to the streets to commemorate the tragedy inflicted upon them some 67 years ago. The Nakba refers to the creation of Israel and mass displacement of Palestinians in 1948. An estimated 750,000 Palestinians were immediately exiled or fled from their lands in Palestine. Some were subjected to brutal massacres at the hands of the Israeli Zionists, while others fled to neighboring Arab countries. That day 67 years ago also marked the beginning of the world's largest refugee crisis. Many Palestinians marked the occasion wearing black clothing, holding large keys and waving black flags. On Friday, a series of protests and marches followed noon prayers throughout the occupied West Bank and the Gaza Strip. But as usual, some of the rallies were violently attacked by Israeli forces. Israel has been an unwelcome entity in the Middle East and beyond since its inception. Despite criticism, Tel Aviv has been grabbing more and more land from Palestinians to build settlements which are illegal under international law. The Israeli regime has also waged numerous wars on regional nations during this period, leaving a trail of deaths and destruction. The most recent Israeli target was the Gaza Strip, which witnessed weeks of deadly Israeli aerial and ground attacks last year. Already under a crippling Israeli blockade, Gazans are still reeling from the wound inflicted by the 50-day war. Will the nightmare of Palestinians come to an end anytime soon? And who should be blamed for the Israeli atrocities? It is a well-known fact that the creation of Israel was part of the 20th century power game and a plot hatched by the West. However, many Muslims around the world are critical of the international community, including Arab states, for their silence on the suffering of Palestinians. Millions of Palestinians are now living outside their homeland due to the Israeli occupation. Still, Palestinians say they remain hopeful and determined to continue resistance against Tel Aviv's continued policy of land grab, killings and settlement expansion. All the crimes have been continuing since the Nakba Day.
8 years of Israeli blockade and 3 wars have devastated Gaza's farming and fishing sectors, pushing the food insecurity rate to an alarming level. Fishermen in Gaza frequently come under Israeli naval attacks, forcing them out of the sea and depriving the people of Gaza of fish, which is a very rich source of animal protein. The Israeli Navy has opened fire on fishermen dozens of times since the beginning of this year. Almost on a daily basis, Israeli forces attack Gazan farmers working in or near the so-called buffer zone. They have also shot and injured over a dozen farmers since February. During Israel's 3 wars on Gaza since 2008, the agriculture and farming sectors came under systematic attacks by Israeli forces. The inability of farmers to access their agricultural lands in the so-called buffer zone and the tight Israeli restrictions on fishermen have caused severe shortage of fresh food in Gaza. Egypt has temporarily reopened the Rafah border crossing with Gaza for a period of 2 days, starting on Tuesday. The crossing was only opened one way to allow Palestinians stranded in Egypt to return to the blockaded coastal enclave. Egypt's restrictions on the Gaza Strip intensified following a deadly bombing that targeted Egyptian security personnel in the Sinai Peninsula in October last year. Continued closure of the Rafah crossing has caused pain and suffering for many people in the Gaza Strip.
I took my son to perform a surgery on his eyes on March the 10th, and we were supposed to stay in Egypt for a week, but we stranded in Egypt for nearly 3 months. You can't even imagine how hard it was for me to be stuck in Egypt with my sick child.
Less than 200 people were allowed to return to Gaza on the first day of the reopening of the crossing, although thousands of Palestinians are still waiting in Egypt. Egypt's decision to reopen the Rafah crossing in one direction into the Gaza Strip has left thousands of people stranded. People, especially patients and students, have been waiting for months for the crossing to reopen.